everyone. Merry Christmas to you. And welcome to Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Abuja. It is 61 days to the 2023 elections. And of course, we're waiting and anticipating the opportunity when Nigerians will be able to elect new leaders. Tonight, our attention will be on how Nigerians are doing that and the expectations ahead of the elections. And let's begin by letting you know what really happened on Christmas Day at a presidential villa where President Muhammadu Buhari received some visitors who were residents of Abuja, but also said he will return to his hometown of Daura after the end of his tenure in office. The president said this will allow him to rest and be far away as much as possible to avoid problems when he leaves office on the 29th of May 2023.
When I promise a lot of my colleagues that I will try and be as far away from Abuja as possible in 5 months' time, so that nobody can create any problem for me anymore. I'll be in the right, and not right on the border with Niger. So I think in spite of technology, I think I'll be safe enough there. I thank God that before the 2019 election, I went round the whole of the state. In 2003 to 2011, I went to all the local governments in this country. In 2019, I went to all the state headquarters. And I thank Nigerians, the people who turned up in every state, in every local government, are more than what anybody can buy or hope. So I was pleased. Nigerians understood me and they accepted me. So I hope in 5 years' time I will happily retire according to the constitution of the country and go back home.
That's President Muhammadu Buhari talking about life after he leaves office. Meanwhile, some presidential candidates are already reaching out to Nigerians about the Christmas and the wishes. They're talking to them about what they think the Christmas means to them. We were able to capture 3 of those presidential candidates. Take a listen to what is said to Nigerians in these videos.
I extend my felicitations to our Christian brothers and sisters on this joyous season of Christmas. May the good Lord grant you and all yours unlimited joy and sustained happiness. May His divine intervention grant our dear country Nigeria tranquility, peace, and prosperity. Let us remain steadfast in prayers for a greater Nigeria after the elections of next year that will be a shining example for our present and future generations. Merry Christmas. May God bless you, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Let your hope symbolized by this season of celebration also herald our renewed hope in the Nigerian of our dreams. May the joy and the great gift of Christmas be the renewed hope that we can and will forge a better Nigeria with the help and guidance of Almighty God above. May God bless Nigeria, bless you. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Celebrate with all my brothers and sisters across the country, especially the Christians who are celebrating Christmas in this country and even beyond. And I believe this is the time for all of us as Nigerians to come together as brothers and sisters to ensure that all our serious issues, especially the issue of security, the issue of the economy, and so on and so forth.
Oh, you heard some of the presidential candidates, those who made Christmas videos to Nigerians. Well, as that is going on, of course, and Nigerians are enjoying their Christmas celebrations with families and friends, well, the season is about joy and sharing of joy and celebrating with loved ones. Politicians have their eyes on one hand on the 2023 elections, and hopefully they will be able to resume their campaign activities after in the new year. But in the midst of all of these are the fears about some of the scenarios and the trends that we have seen over the past few weeks. INEC has said over 50 incidents in 4 years has happened to its facilities, and we've seen some other incidents that have happened, about 3 or 4 of them, after INEC released those data. Now, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, has sent out a very strong warning to those who are perpetrating these attacks on INEC facilities. And I'd like you to listen to Professor Mahmood Yakubu, the INEC chairman.
The offices were destroyed nationwide during protests. Some of the protests have nothing to do with elections, over the activities of Boko Haram or bandits or unknown gunmen. So these attacks cannot be attributed in the main to election violence. Should such attacks continue at the pace at which they are happening at the moment, the Commission may find it increasingly difficult to recover in good time for the election. If it's about stopping the attacks, yes, we can recover. But if the attacks continue, it will be very difficult for the Commission to recover.
Well, that to me does not sound very good for our election. If this attack continues, we're seeing this attack continuing, and what are the efforts that are being made to stop these attacks? We're hoping and looking forward to this election, which a lot of Nigerians believe it's going to be a watershed in our political history, because it will usher in a new government, apart from the government of President Muhammad Buhari, who would have served out 2 terms by the end of May 2023. Now, it's going to be crucial also, because the next president will have the burden of fixing some of the problems of Nigeria, which a lot of us have concern about, on who does have the best idea to present to Nigerians, because having the idea and telling Nigerians are 2 different things entirely. So tonight, let's get to look at the state of things in respect of what INEC is doing, these attacks, and what it portends for our democracy and our elections next year. I'm being joined by a lawyer, rights activist, a professor, a former chairman of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Ansam Odinkalu. He joins us virtually from Awka in Anambra State. It's good to see you, Prof, and Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much indeed for making out time for us on a celebration like this.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Good evening and Merry Christmas. I thought you were going to spare us politics on this day.
All right. Well, interesting. I mean, a lot of people I thought that sent me messages about sending their Christmas rice and meat and all of that, forgetting where I'm going to get mine from. I was going to send yours. It would have been good not to talk politics, but the supporters and fans of this program will be disappointed. That's why we're here for them on a day like this. So let's talk about how to push and move our democracy forward, Prof. First and foremost, I see some of these attacks as attack on our democracy, and it portends very badly for our nation. First and foremost, you heard what the INEC chairman said there. He said, if there's a proviso there, if this attack continues, it might not allow them to prepare on time for the election. What do you read in those words, between the lines, from what Professor Mahmood Yakubu said?
I mean, it's gratifying that the INEC chairman has smelt the coffee, or at least acknowledged the smell of the coffee, because until now, INEC has been unwilling to acknowledge the challenges. And when some of us raised those issues, you had folks from within INEC and outside calling us unpatriotic, like they have a monopoly of patriotism. And as if acknowledging reality is itself unpatriotic. And so it is gratifying that INEC at the highest level is willing to acknowledge these issues. That said, I also think that INEC continues to underestimate the challenge. and it is not fully aligned with the challenge of being open with Nigerians. Because the real question is not whether or not this violence is going to continue. The reality is it is going to continue. The question is, what exposure does INEC suffer at the moment? What's its assessment of that situation? And how does that assessment impact on the choices and decisions that Nigerians have to make on the 25th of February? INEC is unwilling to come clean on that. And if you ask them, they will tell you that they're relying on the ISIS, the Interagency Committee on Election Security. Basically, they parcel it off to the security services. But at the end of the day, INEC is the entity that's got to organize the elections, and they're the people who've got to make the judgment calls. Nigerian lives will depend on those judgment calls, and I think Nigerians deserve better than INEC is willing to disclose at the moment.
Prof, you are a very, you have studied and you've monitored how our democratic transitions have gone over the last few years. 2015 perhaps is a year, an election cycle which saw some threat to our election before, months and weeks before the election. Aside that, I'm not sure we have seen in a long time as much threat that we have seen on our election as we have seen in this run-up to the 2023 election, except in 2011 that we saw post-election violence in Bauchi and some other parts of the country. This is threatening, but how much of danger do you think these portend?
Look, it's no secret. If you speak to the security services at the highest levels, at middle levels, they acknowledge that there are challenges. The assessments are there. They've been done by the security services, and they've been transmitted, to my knowledge, to the president and to the relevant people. And with an estimate of the numbers and locations of places where the intensity of violence may preclude voting, or safe conduct of elections. It is the responsibility of INEC. INEC owes it to its staff, as a matter of fact, to ensure that the staff are able to administer elections safely. And there are parts of this country as we speak where, as a result of an underlying pathology of violence, whether, as the chairperson said, it's Boko Haram or bandits or so-called ungunned men or whatever you call them, it is difficult for INEC to deploy safely to do elections. And INEC knows those places. If INEC cannot deploy safely to do elections in any place, then you can take it for granted that it's also unsafe for citizens to vote in those places. If that is so, it seems to me that citizens in those places need to be told. So that, you see, the idea somehow that INEC and security services can bring about a rearticulation of that landscape of violence without the participation of citizens is fantasy. It's not going to happen. And the easiest way, therefore, to solve this issue is to enlist citizens actively, so that together with INEC and the security services and political leadership, assuming the political leadership is willing to buy into this, they can face the perpetrators of this violence as common enemies of all of us. But INEC seems unwilling to provide that leadership, and the politicians are happy with that, because the politicians also are willing to deploy violence situationally for purposes of electoral advantage, depending on where that is happening.
So let's look at what could INEC have done, or what should INEC be doing. You hear President Muhammadu Buhari making a commitment. He said that what he's going to do is to leave a legacy of a free, fair, and credible election. Perhaps, could there be any other thing that the president needs to do? He said he's giving the orders to the security agencies to do their jobs, and the chief of defense staff has said, look, as far as they're concerned, they will ensure that they are non-partisan. We heard from the National Security Advisor that they will ensure that politicians abide by the rules of the game. But few days after those statements were made, we saw attacks on INEC facilities. So an INEC chairman has said, if this continues, it's going to impact on the conduct of the election. So what do you think the president, on one hand, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, could have done? Or what should INEC be doing right now to ensure that these threats and these dangers are nipped in the bud?
There is a disclosure responsibility on the part of all of these people, which they are failing to countenance. And they seem to think that they have a monopoly of capability. And the fact of the matter is that as we speak, the notional monopoly that the Nigerian state claims to violence and its legitimate instrumentality is contested by lots of entities, lots of creatures, and it's been contested for a while. That is why the state is unable to provide security to citizens on the scale that it ought to. That is why in places, for instance, in Kaduna State, whether it is southern Kaduna or parts of Kaduna or northern Kaduna senatorial zone, for instance, in parts of Wari and all of that, it is impossible. There are places where non-state actors are controlling the territory and dictating to citizens what they should do, dictating to politicians whether or not they can or will campaign. In parts, including parts of the local government of the current governor of Imo State, for instance, non-state actors are dictating what can and should happen. And so from the far north of Nigeria to the tropical rainforests and creeks of Nigeria, you've got these territories. And the assessments, I believe you read the report in this day sometime last month, every geopolitical zone bar none of the country is affected from about 10 wards in the southwest to over 300 in the northwest. Every geopolitical zone has wards in which it may be impossible to have elections. The report estimated just under 700 wards in the country. Now, if you look at the quantity of wards we've got and you take out, you're not able to organize elections in about 690 or thereabouts wards, you are in trouble. And it seems to me that this responsibility of disclosure that our leaders are wimping out of has got to be addressed. You're talking about what the Chief of Defense Staff, what you also did not mention is that the same Chief of Defense Staff also went on record to say that the joint services were under pressure to derail the elections, to compromise, as the report said, the elections. It seems to me that he has a duty, that's General Rabo, has a duty to say who those people are that are putting them under that pressure and to deploy the laws of the country against them. When that is not being done, how can we trust them as citizens to guarantee the safety of the elections? That's the challenge here. And so we cannot trust them given Nigeria's history. If you read the report of the Sheikh Lemu panel, presidential panel, 2011 post-election violence, he said one thing, that election violence is part of the culture of Nigerian politics. And 3 years earlier, Chief Justice Muhammad Uwais said in his report on election reform that election rigging was part of Nigeria's culture. So if you have a culture of election rigging certified at the highest levels and a culture of violence certified at the highest levels, and you think all you can do is address it with bullets, you're wasting your time, it seems to me. That cultures are not shot. You don't shoot your way out of a culture. You have to organize your way and enlighten your way out of a culture. That's my problem with the way we are. So,
Prof, in this scenario that we found ourselves, let's assume that the issue here is whether or not the activities of these people will will amount to an election. And the rules are very clear, isn't it, of what needs to be done. The Electoral Act is there. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is there. Now, in the analysis which you have given tonight, it boils down to the fact that at the end of the day, if all of this leads to violence, which INEC, you're saying INEC needs some level of disclosure that will help us to be able to justify the situation as we need to do. Give us a summary of the conclusion. Whether or not going forward in all of this, the bodies of law that we have guiding our election and the activities of the politicians that we're seeing so far can give us an election, or if there is a possibility that our election of February may not happen. We've seen it happen, elections have been postponed, but INEC said it was ready. But if there is that possibility, then we can start looking at solution, isn't it?
Well, I think anybody anybody who pretends to be in a position to rule out that possibility now will be deceiving yourself, deceiving Nigerians, and deceiving themselves. The person will not be honest. But let me also get down to try and address your question with an illustration. Okay? The fact, now, the criminal code prohibits murder. The penal code prohibits culpable homicide. The criminal code prohibits and punishes rape. The penal code prohibits rape. But those things still happen. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Rape still happens, notwithstanding the fact that it's a crime. And murder still happens, notwithstanding the fact that it's a crime. The answer to the existence of crime of rape or of murder or of culpable homicide is not to tell us that there is a law against it. It is to address the capability for ensuring that you diminish and suppress and punish and hold accountable those crimes. As long as you're unable to do that, and as long as you're unable to involve communities and neighborhoods in ensuring that that does not happen, then those crimes are going to continue to escalate. It is the same thing here, it seems to me, with what we're speaking about.
Who should we be holding accountable, Prof, in this sense? Who should Nigerians, because we need to name names and give the blaze, because we don't want to get to 2023 February, and we discover that we're at that point that elections can hold on the election day. Who should Nigerians be looking out to hold accountable now? Can you give us names, specifics?
Now, this is a multi-agency undertaking, right? Ultimately, INEC is the organizer and guarantor of the organization of elections in whatever form they take place. And INEC is the primary entity here. But violence, and the violence we are speaking about is not just, as the chairperson rightly said in my view, it's not just election violence. There's an underlying pathology of violence that's been there since about 2009 and has been growing and metastasizing. And therefore, the security services, the joint services have got to take responsibility. That includes the internal security entities, that is police, the SSS, the civil defense, and all of that. And at the moment, I don't want to discount or speak glibly about this, because there are people in the services who are making sacrifices with their lives. But the reality is, this is not enough so far. And I think President Buhari himself acknowledged that his best has not been good enough for Nigerians. That's sadly the reality. And it seems to me in this particular situation, the point I'm trying to make is INEC has an advocacy responsibility in addition to every other thing it does. On this particular issue of violence, INEC has an advocacy responsibility that it has been, it's shirked, for want of a better expression. I could be a lot more damning about what they've done, but I'll just say INEC has shirked its advocacy responsibility. It's tried to outsource it. The NGOs have tried to give excuses for INEC. I don't think any NGOs can give excuses for INEC on this particular issue without compromising their independence and impartiality on this question. And INEC has got to be held to account. I regret. I do know that President Buhari is the commander-in-chief, but he's in a difficult position because there's an extent to which he can go. He becomes a partisan actor. And the most he can do is to hold the hands of the security services, recognizing, however, that even actors in the security service are also scoping the situation for advantage. Some of them may want to play into the hands of people whom they think are better placed to win the elections. And so being able to hold down the situation is not easy. That's the reality. And that's why you need citizens here. Citizens to be mobilized to get involved. That's where INEC is failing in my view.
Yeah. There is this question I'd like, as a lawyer, give us an understanding.
Am I still a lawyer?
And you were called to the bar. You took a bar before the Supreme Court of Nigeria some time ago. So I can assume that you are one. I don't know if you are paying your NBA dues though, but yeah, let's assume that you're still one. Now, give us the benefit of that for the moment. The Electoral Act 2020, is it 21 or 22 now, the Electoral Act, does it give us an assurance that election riggers will have a tough time And the CBN is doing its policies and saying that some of these policies, some people are drawing inferences that it's hoping that will curb the issue of vote trading on election day. Give us an understanding of the atmosphere, legal atmosphere going into this election. Do we have a tough day for election riggers?
With all due respect, this is not an issue of electoral act. Just as I said, murder is a crime and rape is a crime, but they still happen and are rising because they're not effective. It's the same thing here, okay? The Electoral Act, to be perfectly honest with you, since at least 1979, since we've started having presidential elections, has provided for crimes. It's also the case. If you read the Babalaki Commission report from 1986, down to all the subsequent reports affecting elections or aspects of elections, one thing is very clear. Politicians have been unwilling and unable to prosecute crimes of election violence and election rigging because they perpetrate them, they benefit from them, they finance them. And so they give a carte blanche to the perpetrators who are their partners in crime. All right? But there is a second thing, which is our judiciary is messed up at the moment. I mean, INEC has, to its credit, in my view, at least started to recognize that this is a problem. INEC says it's got over 600 conflicting orders from judges who are confusing it and confounding the process of organizing elections. There are nearly 2,000 pre-election cases that are pending, and you're having this confetti of orders that cannot be justified on any rational basis. A judge sits down in the court in one state and disqualifies the candidates of all parties other than the party ruling in the state. And the judicial hierarchy in the country sits down and watches this happen, and the Nigerian Bar Association is watching it happen, and we've seen all complicit in this nonsense, and then tomorrow we start complaining that the country is in the doldrums. This is the problem, that a lot of people and institutions are failing in our responsibility. INEC has a lot to answer for, but it's by no means alone. The judiciary has a tremendous burden of responsibility, and it is failing the country woefully. You know, I've done a sequence of articles over the past 2 weeks, just itemizing the killings of lawyers and abductions of judges, in my view, which the country should be worried about. What I found astonishing is that, because for me that is very, very worrying, when judges are being abducted and lawyers are being killed in the numbers that is happening in Nigeria. Now, my inbox has been full of correspondence I cannot dare publish from Nigerians who are whooping at the fact that judges are being abducted and lawyers are being killed. And they are saying this is good for lawyers and judges because lawyers and judges are destroying the country with bad case law. Obviously, that is condemnable in my view. This kind of sentiment, in my view, I totally condemn. I cannot associate with. But the fact that Nigerians are thinking this way is what worries me. And the fact that our judiciary and legal profession and the Nigerian Bar Association don't seem able to recognize that this problem exists and to offer their own way out of it is, for me, very worrying.
Wow. You've raised a very, very crucial one there. I would have actually taken you to the issue of beavers and what it could do for our election, but we're totally out of time. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us tonight. It's good to see you again. You're looking as fresh as the last time I saw you physically. Thank you so much indeed for coming on tonight.
And have a wonderful New Year in advance as well.
You too, please. Thank you so much. We'll take a break, everyone, and when we return, we will be speaking with a member of the National Peace Committee, Archbishop John Cardinal Onaiyekan, who will be joining me, and we're looking at having a peaceful election. Are those still in the offing with the behaviors and the activities of politicians? What we will be looking at in electing the next president of Nigeria. His Eminence will be joining us shortly. Stay with It's just about 2 months exactly to the first election in 2023, and the choice before Nigerians are tough. They need to now take up the task of electing the best man for the job. In the spate of the series of attacks that we've seen on INEC facilities and the series of activities of politicians in view of the peace accord they signed and their campaign activities, what are the expectations going into the new year? I'm being joined tonight by Archbishop John Cardinal Onaiyekan, who is the clergy of the Catholic Church, who was Archbishop of Abuja, and a cardinal who served as president of the Christian Association of Nigeria, as well as the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, and Bishop of Ilorin. Is a member of the National Peace Committee. The Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja, His Eminence John Cardinal Onaiyekan, is live with us from his residence in Abuja. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, sir. Give us an understanding, and I say Merry Christmas to you. Look, you're part of the National Peace Committee, and there are a lot of expectations on the minds of the members of the committee on the expectations of the politicians, the activities of politicians, what they needed to do and what they shouldn't do. Are you disappointed, or what are your feelings about the activities so far since the campaign started?
Thank you very much, and happy Christmas to you all in the studio and to all our viewers. Yes, I'm a member of the National Peace Committee, but I hope Nigerians know that this is not a statutory body that has been established by government or parliament or anything, but rather just a group of Nigerians who want to feel that working together towards improving the situation of the nation will be something that can be done to the best of our ability. Having said that, you asked, what do I see from the performance of politicians, especially all of them who have signed the peace accord some weeks ago, and maybe you want to know whether I'm confident and optimistic about the election. Well, I will be frank with you that I'm worried. I am not too confident, because the performance of the political parties and their followers often at variance with what we expected of them, with what they signed during the peace accord. Please don't forget that there's nothing in the peace accord that is not in the electoral law. The peace accord simply spells out what we expect politicians to do. Simple things, that politicians should be civil in the way they carry out their campaigns. They should they should not engage in hate speech. They should not tell lies against one another. May I add too, they should not be telling lies about what they want to do and what they don't want to do, or above all, telling lies about what they think they have done when they haven't done it. We are looking for a campaign that will be issue-based and will respect truth and objectivity, so that Nigerians listening to them will be able to make up their minds. The question is, when the rules are not observed, when the law is flouted, who is it that is to insist on accountability? Somehow, it seems we are having difficulties getting this done. There's too much impunity, and a lot of people getting away with doing things that they ought not to do. The INEC is doing its best, but I think there's a limit to how far INEC can go. We are also seeing other events taking place in terms of violent events, burning of INEC offices, killings, and those kind of things which are making our society and our community a bit unstable. And we're wondering, can we continue like this into a free, fair, and credible election? And who is to restrain the hands of all these violent actors? those of us who are neither in the security department nor even in the political arena are looking on, and often we do not know what to say.
Yeah,
Things are
Your Eminence.
that ought
so
not.
Let me ask you. You speak, and a lot of Nigerians respect your views. Let me draw you out from a few of the chairs that you perhaps would naturally sit. First as a clergy, and the other as a member of the National Peace Committee. I'd like you to speak as citizen John Onaiyekan tonight, and give Nigerians an understanding of what they should be looking at in the next leaders, or in the next leader, or the next president they should be elected.
I am sure Nigerians are not waiting for that. Nigerians are not waiting. I'm sure there's a problem. There's a problem. I am sure that Nigerians are not waiting for me to tell them what they want, because Nigerians already know what they want. They are also aware of the things that they don't want that has been happening from their politicians. They want a good government, a stable government, a government where truth and justice prevail, a government where justice is carried out, where from point of view of economy, where there is where people can get jobs and have a minimum of decent living. Those things are obvious. What Nigerians want are obvious. And I imagine even the political parties in their campaigns, they keep reeling out all these lists of what Nigerians are looking for, and they promise to give it to us. But we know that these promises have been made before, several times before, often by the same group of people, and nothing has happened. You don't expect us to take their word for it. It is not good for the nation to have a situation where there is a major distrust of the ruling class. And that is what we are going through. It is a matter that is quite worrisome. As a religious leader, I'm putting it every day in prayer that we must get out of where we are right now, because a lot is happening that should not be happening. Nigeria should be.
I look at one issue that I watched,
and the politicians know that,
about the issue of religion. There are two major factors that have troubled our politics: religion and ethnicity. And you have spoken about the issue of fairness in our politics and going forward. What do you think has happened in terms of religion and ethnicity in this country, and what Nigerians should avoid?
To put it a bit bluntly, I believe that our problem is really not with ethnicity and religion. It cannot be with ethnicity because we really have no choice in the matter. I was born in Kaba, so I'm a Yoruba man, not by choice, but by accident of birth. And if things like that for every Nigerian, it should not be an issue. As for religion, again, it is a choice that people make freely, and therefore it should not be an issue. What has been issues about religion, let me speak about religion, are two series of factors. The first factor, in my own opinion, is when those who claim to be running their, use a bad expression, to those who are running the business of religion are not doing the right thing. When you are having people who are claiming to be religious when they have other agenda at mind, and when people do not respect one another in their religious differences. And there is this tendency for some people to believe we alone have the right religion, everybody else is a pagan. Now, that kind of attitude cannot help us, cannot help religion. The other aspect, which is easier to handle perhaps, is when politicians, because they want to win election, do all they can to manipulate religion. and they use it in order to capture they want people to vote for them because they claim to be of a particular religion, knowing how our people take their religion seriously. It is possible to refuse to be manipulated by politicians. But when people decide on their own that they want to manipulate their own religious sentiments, there's not much anybody can do about it. We in the religious field, we have been, a lot of effort has been made as Christians and Muslims, Christians and their different denominations. We have been trying to work ourselves towards a situation where we have mutual respect, understanding of one another, and when we can realize that our religious differences should not become a cause for hatred of one another, which leads to violence. And this we should do all we can to bring to the consciousness of those who are our followers. Now, if everybody does that, it will make a lot of difference.
Your Eminence, but if there is one message on a day as this that you would like to pass out to not only politicians, but to the voters, there's the beavers and there's the atmosphere the INEC says it will create to ensure that elections are credible. We have on our hands a very critical job to do, to elect a president that can fix the problems of this country going into the new year. What would that message be, Your Eminence, to Nigerians tonight on the final word?
The message I would give to Nigerians is that we should realize we cannot continue as we have been going until now. And therefore, we should try our best and beg the Almighty God to make it possible for us to use the opportunity of a new election in 2023 to turn the nation around. Now, this is the job of the politicians, but it's also our job. And we should make sure that all those who may be, as it were, who may seem to want to create problems, who don't want anything to change seriously, those who are even thinking of disrupting the election, we should do our best to restrain their hands, and the government should be seen to be proactive in this regard. That is for me the biggest message I will have for Nigerians. As for politicians, I will beg them, enough of lies. Enough of insistence that you must win. Because there are politicians who will keep saying, we must win this election. Take whatever it takes, we will win. Now, that kind of language is not democratic. It is the language of those who are going to war. Like they also use almost belligerent language very often in their campaigns. That is not carrying the nation into any better waters. We want a Nigeria that we can all be proud of. Nigeria where all our brothers and sisters who have run away will come back. A Nigeria that the whole world will respect. For the moment, we are not there. The election 2023 can be an opportunity for us. We hope we will not waste.
Thank you so much. The Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja, His Eminence John Cardinal Onaiyekan. Thank you so much indeed for sparing time on your Christmas day to speak to Nigerians on this program. Thank you indeed, and it's good to see you again.
Thank you, and happy Christmas to all of you, and a prosperous new year. God bless
everyone. My Christmas message to you, everyone, is that, look, politics is not a war. I follow the conversations between the different supporters, and it looked to me that if they were physically present in the same space, they might be hurting themselves with the kind of language that goes around. Politics is not war. For those whom you even support, when they see themselves at the airport, you see the way they relate to themselves. So why are you arms against each other on social media? This is the season of love. Let's share love and spread it around. That's our show for today, everyone. I'm Onaiyekan. God bless Nigeria.